And we are going to be underway here in just a moment. One of the great things about covering Grand Prix like this is the great players are going to run into each other at the top of the standings, and we get to watch some great Magic be played.
And we don't have to wait until we're deep into day 2.
Nope. It'll start right here on day number 1. Seth Manfield on your right, Matt Costa on your left. And if you are just joining us, Star City Games hosting Grand Prix Atlanta. Center field is Patrick Sullivan here in the booth for round number 7. These players will resolve their mulligans. They'll be given the green light. And we're underway here with a swamp from Manfield, a mountain from Costa, and a plains from Seth. Costa just an island, so just a couple of lands go. Remember, a little bit of a slow format here. Players aren't going to be busting out of the gates, and of course, we're not playing constructed. We're playing limited here this weekend in Atlanta. There's a swamp from Manfield. And Seth will just pass the turn back. Costa does have additional lands in his hand, and these two have known each other for a pretty long time. Even though Costa kind of a Northeast guy and Seth more of a Maryland guy, they would run into each other at similar tournaments.
Mm-hmm. I grew up in Jersey, and driving to Boston, driving to Baltimore, those were no-brainers for big events. So the East Coast, there's a lot of cities packed into a relatively small land radius. So these players, even if they're from different states, you grew up in these areas, you play each other a bunch.
Great birthing there from Seth that allowed him to make an Eldrazi and cycle. He'll come across here for 1. We'll see what's next here for number 1 in the world. It's a rich history in playing cards. Been watching his dad play cards for a long time. It's kind of in his blood. And once he kind of got out of school and recommitted to playing Magic, these wins, they don't come as much of a surprise. But a lot of people forget Seth Manfield's a 3-time Grand Prix champion.
And he was accumulating these results over the course of the last 3 or 4 years without that much fanfare. You know, it wasn't like he just came out of nowhere and suddenly was dominating the World Championship. There was years and years of very good Grand Prix results that built him up until this point. Just a lot of people aren't necessarily familiar with all those accomplishments as he was coming up.
Malik, your familiar, is taken care of by Spell Shrivel from Costa. Costa with a swamp. So a slight splash. Not surprising to see base 2-color decks with small splashes here. Costa going to play a copy of Herald of Kozilek. And then we're going to return back Seth Manfield's way.
Yeah, a little splash in Costa's deck here. He's got a complete disregard. He also has Radiant Flame, so he has an incentive for a 3rd color regardless.
Seth tapping 5 mana very quickly. Aha! Obnixilus. Our first time seeing that this weekend. And this is a heck of a card. It's going to manage to take care of the Herald, and Costa already in some trouble.
This is a good one. The issue with Obnixilus in this format, if there is one, is the board's got to be kind of stable for you to be able to run away with the game. The worst case scenario is you get a 5-mana removal spell and you get some equity back in combat for your trouble. But with Costa having nothing in play now, there's a chance here that Obnixilus is just going to be game over.
Mm-hmm. Very, very powerful Planeswalker. Going to start to draw cards, maybe kill another creature. We'll see how Manfield wants to use it as we head back Costa's way. Now, earlier this weekend, we saw Corey McDuffie beat a turn 4 Gideon. And there's no panic there from him. He just executed a game plan, got Gideon off the battlefield, turned the corner, won the game. I don't expect to see any panic here from Costa either, but he will go in the tank to figure out how he's going to overcome this very powerful Planeswalker.
The problem is that Wind Drakes and 3/3s are good against Gideon in a way that they are not good against Obnixilus. This is a much more complicated card to answer. If Manfield can follow up here with either a sizable creature or a removal spell for this Vestige of Emrakul, Costa may not be able to get back into the game.
Manfield's going to activate Obnixilus, lose a life, draw a card. There's a Plains for Seth. Access to 6 mana, potentially 7 there with the Eldrazi Scion. Let's see where the world champion does want to go.
I mean, if I'm in Manfield's position, the first thing I'm looking for is there just a way to kill this thing straight away? Assuming not, how do I get the most toughness into play? Because if I can make attacking prohibitive for Costa next turn, then I get another murder with Ob Nixilis, or I get to go up to 4 and then have murder plus it's still in play ready the next turn.
Well, here comes the Vestige. And a Stasis Snare at instant speed is looking to take care of that.
This would qualify as a good answer.
Yeah. Just anything it takes to keep Ob Nixilis alive and let it keep doing its thing. That's the plan here. See if Costa has some sort of rebuttal here. And it looks like Stasis Snare is going to get the job done. So into the second main phase for Matt, we're going to go. Here's 6 mana. That's a Coastal Discovery. It has been awakened. So Costa's going to draw 2, just picked up 2 mountains, and now the land is a 4/4. Over to Manfield we're going to go now. Still active Ob Nixilis. He's trying to protect that thing. It's on 3 counters. He could use the minus to take care of the land if he'd like, or he can plus it, draw another card, and try to keep that train going. For now, he's attacking, which I wouldn't feel great if I'm Costa if that's the case.
This is a good spot to have here. I mean, Manfield, maybe you feel a little disappointed if you're in Seth's spot there, but for your 5 mana, you got a card and 2 terminates.
And he's getting back an Ob Nixilis. so that's making things pretty hard here for Matt Costa. Emiria Shepherd is the card, by the way. That is making life very difficult here for Matt.
I was about to say, Costa kind of got off the hook there, only having to play against 2 terminates and Seth drawing a card.
Yeah. Well, now he's also got a 4/4 flyer to contend with as well. You see Emiria Shepherd. When land enters the battlefield under your control, you may return target non-land permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. If that land is a plains, you may return that non-land permanent card to the battlefield instead. Costa got to cast and anticipate. We're heading back Seth's way. Seth's deck, for the record, a real nice one. There's also an Ulamog hiding out here somewhere. +1 goes Ob Nixilis. He'll lose a life to draw a card. For Seth now, it's a McKindy Patrol. The follow-up is a Sandstone Bridge. Gonna give that Emiria Shepherd Vigilance. Give the beatdowns. And what you've noticed here is Seth Manfield using all of his mana every turn. Onto Greathorn, pass the turn back. There's a mountain for Costa. He'll pass the turn back.
Costa's not even bothering to cast any creatures at this point.
Yep.
He is playing on solely for information.
Yeah. You picked up on it too right away, huh?
Yep. Yeah, a handful of creatures. He could cast that and try to wear down Ob Nixilis. Costa knows that's hopeless. So he's just playing on, hoping to that Manfield will show him some trick or some good threat that he should know to play around for the next game.
Now I'm curious, if Seth has something that transgress the mind, we might see Matt concede. Because
Yes.
he doesn't want to give away any information.
Absolutely.
Core Castigator comes down. A land will trigger some things here for Seth. Emiria Shepherd, Ondu Greatheart, McKindy Patrol. There was an ally that was played, so all the creatures had Vigilance. Costa's at 2. And you can see just with the way Costa's holding his hand, I'm not doing anything. You have this game won. I just want to try to get some information if I can, and he'll scoop up his permanent. So Seth Manfield's going to win game number 1 here over Matt Costa. The black-white deck that has Ob Nixilis and Emiria Shepherd, and also an Ulamog, by the way, up a game over Costa's blue-red deck.
And Costa needs to be a lot faster than he was that game.
Yes.
There's a fairly big gap in power between these 2 decks, to say the very least. And Costa's draw there was a little bit on the slow side, and Ob Nixilis was way too much to overcome. And there's more power in Manfield's deck, as you saw. So I think Costa needs to speed up the deck if he can.
Taking a look at Seth's deck, we mentioned the Ulamog that's hiding out, Bane of Belaged, Conduit of Ruin. He has an Emiria Shepherd, a Courier Griffin, a Feldar Cub, Gideon's Reproaches removal. Most white decks have a sheer drop. He has 1, 2, along with a Stasis Snare. He has black-white, so there's a little bit of life gain going on with a Stonehaven Medic. Bone Splinters hiding out in his sideboard. A little bit notable there. We've seen most of those in the main deck this weekend, but it doesn't appear to do very much in his deck because having Scions to throw away to it.
Yeah, the black-white decks struggle a little bit more to get the Scions into play. He's got a great birthing, but that by itself probably doesn't justify playing with Bone Splitters.
We saw Obnixilis, of course, and then Seth is working with 19 lands this weekend. So he wants to make sure he can cast spells. In that game, he was certainly able. You said there's a pretty big gulf in power level here. Costa got any bombs or anything of that nature?
I was about to say on the subject of that, he's got a Radiant Flames in his deck. I don't exactly know, exactly how he can sideboard here. I think he needs to strongly consider removing Radiant Flames from his deck. Okay. I don't know if he can win that sort of long game. Manfield did not show a lot of small creatures that are vulnerable to it, and even something like a Sure Strike, which Costa has in the sideboard, might be a more productive card.
He probably has to change it up a little bit. We saw him go to the sideboard.
Yes. That's something that a lot of people struggle to pull the trigger on, are symmetrical sweepers, and getting away from them when your deck is way outpowered. There's no benefit for Costa going into a longer game here. So Radiant Flame still might just be too high in raw power for Costa to get away from it, but it's much worse for him in this matchup than a card like Radiant Flames typically is.
Well, game number two, excuse me, going to be underway here between Manfield and Costa in just a moment. And we will see who elects to go first here, as it is Costa's decision. We have oftentimes seen players choosing to draw, but I'm not sure a late game favors Matt here.
Yep. And Costa just also needs to be able to get his hands on as many creatures as possible, because as you saw there, when Costa had one creature in play and Manfield played Obnixilis, that was too much to overcome. The more that Costa can flood the board, the more that he can at least hope to kill Obnixilis on his own turn or make it prohibitive for Manfield to cast Obnixilis in the first place. If Costa's slow to get on the board, forget about it. And a card like Radiant Flames is doing nothing for him in terms of beating cards like Amirius Shepherd and Obnixilis.
Yeah.
The counter spells are good. I don't mind having some of the counter spells in the deck.
The counters.
You know, Manfield's got some great 5 and 7 mana plays as we saw, but the purely reactive stuff that plays to the board, I'm less certain Costa can keep those cards in.
Well, you can tell Costa he's got an uphill climb for himself in this particular game. So we'll see what he can do. Costa electing to go on the draw.
Okay.
A little surprised?
If he doesn't feel like he can sideboard into a deck that can realistically take advantage of the tempo, then he kind of has to.
Okay.
Another way to beat a deck like Seth's is just to hope they don't make their land drops. Being on the draw gives them more opportunities to do that. So Seth's deck is not worth a whole lot from what we saw if he's stuck on 4 lands.
Well, these players are going to draw their openers. We'll see what Costa's able to find. Remember, he's on the draw. Manfield is on the play. Manfield is going to keep. A Plains for Seth, an Island for Costa begins game number 2 of round 7. There is a Swamp for Manfield. Second Swamp. There's McKinney Patrol. Sunken Hollow there from Costa. Again, the black splash in his deck, not too tough to do.
Yep, complete disregard and Radiant Flames for 3. We have a Blood Bond Vampire here from Manfield.
Mm-hmm. Looks like that's going to bite the dust, though. Complete disregard going to take care of that. So back Costa's way we're going to go.
So he has land number 4, but it does not produce red mana. Looks like it's a Blighted Gorge. And the problem is, this looks like a straightforward play. Costa's going to make it. If Manfield just goes land number 5, Obnixilis, this game could be over. Mm-hmm. So I think Costa was just giving a look to see if there was any other way for him to deploy his resources. But
yeah, he just elected to play the Cryptic Cruiser, and he's hoping that Seth doesn't have the big haymaker. That's really all he can do. And he doesn't have it. He's got Callisto Nightwatch. Mountain is the draw here for Matt. And he'll play the Herald. And pass the turn back over to Manfield. And we know Manfield has Ob Nicholas. He's got an Ulamog to work towards that Costa has not seen, and we saw Miria Shepherd last game. And we'll see what the methodical Manfield wants to do on this turn. Got a core Castigator. That's an ally, so it brings some triggers along with it. And it's unclear if the McKinley Patrol wants to come to the red zone or not. I don't think so. Manfield with the Plains. Now Courier Griffin. So it appears as though he's going to get to gain 2 life.
Also get up in the air here if it resolves.
Looks like Spell Shrivel because Herald's going to make spells cheaper.
And I think Costa would have liked to save that card for as long as possible because of the Shepherd and Ob Nicholas, but a flyer here is just worth a lot. On top of that, it triggers the Night Watch, and that's 4 more points of damage, so it's probably just good enough to counter here.
Yeah, creature set at vigilance there, so players make sure everything is okay because the McKinley Patrol, an ally was played, gives everything vigilance. So in for 4, pass the turn back. Over to Costa.
Processor Assault on the cheap, very nice. Be really good if Costa had some way to fill out the rest of his mana this turn.
Doesn't appear that he does, though. So we go back to Manfield instead. Now we play what I feel is kind of an interesting game of cat and mouse here, where, you know, if Seth does have one of his big cards to play, he's playing against blue open mana, so it's curious how he wants to sequence his spells. He's going to go with big skims to start, the Silent Skimmer.
And this is a pretty good place for Manfield to start because Costa has to respect this card. He can't block flyers right now. And it's not the easiest card to kill, so you get some information.
Well, here's Coastal Discovery. He's going to awaken that, so the shields are down. So if Manfield was sandbagging something, we're going to find out right now. As Costa only drew 2 lands off that Coastal Discovery. He does have a 4/4, which is nice. And we'll see if Seth does have something to do, as he's already reaching for his mana. Skimmer's going to come across. It'll be a trigger. Costa will lose 2. Manfield would just want to pass the turn back. That's a sigh of relief if you're Costa.
Absolutely. I mean, he knows about the 2 big cards. The shields were down. Manfield does not appear to have one of them.
Costa will play an island very quickly and come across here for 4 with the Awoken Island.
Miss Strider on the follow-up there for Costa.
On the cheap yet again. Manfield tapping 4. He's gotten onto Greatheart. Now Matt with 3 mana. Looks like he's going to tap down the Skimmer there with the Cruiser. A mountain very quickly there from Costa. Now he's going to take a look at the graveyard a little bit. See a little bit of confidence here. Sitting up in the chair a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, he knows that there's a lot of really powerful cards in Manfield's deck, but Seth does not appear to have them right now. And the game on the board looks very favorable for Costa.
There's Touch of the Void. Bye-bye, Greatheart. All right. Costa doing pretty well for himself. Exiling things to turn on the Cruiser. The Cruiser can, of course, tap things down. Manfield just going to play a Plains, pass the turn back. Cruiser will go active. Going to remove a card, attack the Skimmer to allow the Mist Intruder to keep attacking. Land there from Costa's a mountain. Matt's getting pretty aggressive with that Awoken Island, along with the Mist Intruder.
Yeah, the double block here costs Manfield both of his creatures.
Exiled. A copy of Demon's Grasp. All Manfield can do is pass the turn back. The Cruiser, gonna exile that card to shut down the Skimmer. Costa gonna quickly untap and draw. It's 12-10 in favor of Matt now. Feels like he just needs one more spell to get over the edge here. He's not doing bad right now, obviously, but it's always tenuous when you know Seth's got some big cards to draw.
Well, the door is starting to shut a little bit here for Manfield, as with the Cryptic Cruiser in play, Costa's going to be able to start going very aggressive, pushing through the last couple of points of damage soon, assuming that this Mist Intruder is able to continue to hit.
What's also interesting here, too, is, Costa probably wants to attack with the Cruiser, but he needs the Cruiser. So he has to be a little wary of a card like Sheer Drop, so maybe he doesn't want to attack with it at all.
Yep.
Because the Cruiser's doing such good work for him. The Island's going to trade off with 2 cards there. There goes Omnixilus.
One sigh of relief.
Yep.
We don't have the full sigh just yet, but we got one.
You assume there's not a second one in there. So you think he got past that problem.
Very interesting there. Costa decided not to use the Blighted Gorge inside of combat. It was a pretty juicy spot. But that block from Manfield, being willing to make the double block into the face of the Gorge, represents a Costa that Manfield might have a trick. He doesn't want to get involved in some sort of complicated stack where he gets blown out, so he's happy just to hang back with the Blighted Gorge and not go for broke inside of combat there.
Now this time, you saw Matt not tap down Seth's Skimmer, because Matt says, I'll just tap down what comes after it. Well, will you? Because here's Ulamog, and Ulamog doesn't even hit the battlefield right away. It has triggers when it's on the stack, so it's going to take care of the Herald and the Cruiser. Those are the targets. Those are going to get exiled. Looks like nothing Costa can do about that, and now he's facing down the 10-10 that's indestructible, and typically only takes one attack to get the game over with.
And things were looking so good.
Yes, they were.
And Manfield may be able to go for the Perfecto next turn.
Well,
okay. I was going to say he was going to be able to attack, nuke Costa's entire deck, and then kill him with the Ulamog.
But Costa still got some fight left in this one. Timely counterspell, that's one thing you can do to Ulamog, so Spell Shrivel took care of it. Now for Costa. The Great Heart's down. It's going to bounce the Skimmer back to the hand. That card, by the way, was a Merc Strider, just so that you're aware. It is a 3-2 with Devoid. Skimmer's back. Costa going to use Stone Free to take care of the Skimmer. It's a 2-turn clock right now for Matt. He's going to quickly untap and draw in for 4. He'll go to ingest once. Can he hold on and cross the finish line here? Manfield will draw. He hasn't conceded this game just yet. Looks like he's found something to do. He's got Grave Birthing. Got to figure out what card he wants to exile, but he'll get to draw a card. Maybe this can chain him into something. There are scary cards here.
Keep in mind, Costa still with the Blighted Gorge in play. Costa can go for the kill right now. He can use the Blighted Gorge to take care of the Scion, untap, and that's 4.
Looks like he is going to use the Blighted Gorge. Deal 2 damage over to that Scion. Maybe untap and try to go for the W. Here's 6 mana. He's going to cast the discard spell. I like this. Wants to make sure the coast is clear. Now he's going to attack for the W. He's going to get the job done. So Matt Costa, Seth Manfield, they are all tied up now and getting ready here for game number 3. Pretty competitive match so far.
So, good news for Costa. You got game number 2.
Yes.
Bad news is Ulamog is also in Manfield's deck. And if there was any doubt before if you could win a long game, it's got to be gone now. I mean, Costa was able to win a very protracted game there. Don't get me wrong, but only one of Manfield's Haymakers showed up. The Shepherd never was drawn, to our knowledge, and Omnixilus got exiled to a Devoid trigger several turns ago. Or excuse me, to an Ingest trigger several turns ago. But there's a lot of power in Manfield's deck.
I don't want to go long.
And now Manfield gets to be the one to take the draw here.
Yeah.
And I wonder how much of that is going to tilt the sideboarding for Costa. Now does he feel like I have to really speed it up and become the most aggressive deck possible?
Well, he's at the sideboard. You see him. He's thumbing through. He might be changing his mind. But again, his deck might not allow him to go aggressive.
There's some marginal stuff hanging out in the sideboard, but I think we're probably too extreme if we're bringing cards like Goblin Warpaint and Lava Step Raider and Sure Strike. Those options are afforded to him, but that seems to be too extreme of a path to me.
Well, Matt's going to go to the drawing board. You saw him win that game. Seth also going to the drawing board, too. Now, Seth will have option. He could choose to draw, could choose to play. But Seth is, I think, taking a look at the deck list card for card, he's the more powerful deck.
I think that Manfield's almost certainly going to be taking the draw.
Yeah.
Costa's deck's not that fast. Costa took the draw himself in game number 2. And it's usually safe to just sort of follow suit with that. If you think your opponent's good and is making the right assessment, then if there's any doubt, you probably want to do the same thing.
It'll be interesting to see. World champ on the play here for game number 3 against a very formidable opponent here in Matt Costa. It looks like Jerry Thompson may have just been walking away with matches up there behind Costa. Didn't get a great look at it. For Costa, he's given it a long look over as Manfield is happy with his configuration. He'll be shuffling up here for game number 3. Seen a lot of great players thus far here this weekend at Grand Prix Atlanta. Got to watch John Finkel early on in the tournament. Got to see Luis Scott Vargas play against Ben Stark. Now we watch Matt Costa, Seth Manfield, 2 of the younger players that have experienced a lot of Magic success thus far in their career.
Manfield can't be that young anymore, right?
You'd be surprised.
He's got a kid too, right?
Yeah. He's got a little youngster. I think so. I've known Seth a long time, playing on the side draft tables with him after tournaments deep into the night when he was around 17, 18. I can confirm, I believe 25.
Okay.
Maybe 26. Pretty young.
Yep. Not as young as Costa. I thought you were suggesting that they were about the same age. And I was going to say, Manfield's lived a quite full life for someone who's 21 or 22 years old. 25, I buy. Still a lot, but I believe that.
Pretty young, pretty good. That's Seth Manfield. I can say the same for Matt Costa, too. Matt Costa's success is, it feels like it's on suspend.
Right.
It's coming. It's coming, for sure.
And that's often, you know, there's a lot of players who are striving for Pro Tour level success. Maybe they've hit silver one year or another. Maybe they've qualified for a Pro Tour here and there. Costa's friends, and there's a lot of people who are in that spot who feel uncomfortable with the success they've achieved and what they think they should have accomplished by this point, all that kind of stuff. And people are not going to bring it up. Part of the reason Costa's friends are fine with joking around with the mahogany level pro kind of stuff is they know it's just time.
Yeah.
It's just going to happen eventually. And the fact that it hasn't happened is a bit of an aberration, and I think Costa's aware of that too, and so he can joke around about it. For a lot of other players, that's a sensitive topic. You do not want to be bringing up their shortcomings on the professional circuit, their inability to stay on the train.
Manfield on the draw, he's going to take a mulligan.
I did not find it funny in 2002, for example.
He was trying so hard to get those accomplishments, and you just, when is it going to happen already? Come on now. But Matt's already accomplished a lot. He's a Grand Prix champion. He has a Pro Tour top 8 to his name and Pro Tour Dark Ascension before being knocked out by John Finkel in the quarterfinals. So he's no slouch. The resume looks nice, but he wants more.
And this mulligan is a lot worse for Manfield than it is for most decks. He has no card drawing, and he's playing all the way up to Ulamog. And it looks like he's not really cheating on mana. He doesn't have a lot of acceleration. He's just trying to play land number 10 and cast Ulamog. So if he's short on mana, his deck might not be up to much of anything. How many lands has Manfield got in his deck? Now I'm curious.
19.
19? Okay.
Small splash, 1 mountain. Just for a little converge action, nothing too crazy going on there. There's, hold on. Yeah, 1 mountain, excuse me. 9 plains, 8 swamps, 1 mountain, and 1 sandstone bridge. Seth will take a look at 6. He'll keep it. He'll scry now. Top card going to stay on top here for Seth. Costa will start the show with a swamp. A swamp here for Seth. An island for Matt. Turn 2 for Seth. That'll bring a plains. Any plays to be had? Nope. To Costa we go. There's an island. There's the Benthic Infiltrator. From the sideboard?
I would be surprised. No, it's in the main deck.
Okay. Coming in. Gonna deal 1. Can't be blocked. Ingest. Gonna hit a Gideon's Reproach. Let's see what's next here for Matt Costa. It's a Sunken Hollow past the turn back. Over to Manfield.
Looks like a hand that is without red mana again.
Courier Griffin's going to come in. It'll gain Manfield 2 life. Costa will draw. In for 1 yet again. Trigger the Ingest. The Silent Skimmer down an island for Costa past the turn back. You mentioned the lack of red mana. It's readily apparent now. Multiple red cards right now in Matthew Costa's hand.
This one swamp has come up quite a few times.
Yeah,
Game 2, Costa was on red mana delay for quite a while as well.
The Courier going to come across in the air. Now here's Collector Night Watch. You see the way that Seth cast that spell kind of back by his lands, maybe expecting a counter spell?
Yeah, it's certainly on his radar.
He saw 2 counter spells from Matt last game. 2 cups of Spell Shrivel. But the Night Watch is in. Now here's the discard spell. Even more painful when you do take a mulligan. So Myers Malice here from Costa. Not even able to awaken it.
But Manfield's got a substantial board. And if Costa's fumbling around here, not making his land drops, not having red mana, what Manfield has in play can close out the game pretty quickly.
Seth with quite a few cards to decide from. And we'll see what he decides upon. Looks like Ulamog down.
So we're a bit of ways away from that.
I'm inclined to agree with you.
Fine letting Ulamog go here.
And Demon's Grasp down as well, which he actually does have the mana to cast, so that makes you wonder what's going on in his hand.
Also, the way that he played the Night Watch last turn, you wonder if maybe that was a test spell.
Yeah.
Maybe if he says, okay, I got to throw this out there and bleed out a counter if it's available.
The Infiltrator's going to come in. Ingest will take care of a swamp. Manfield very quickly untapping. Does he have Obnixilis, I suppose, is the question. Here's an attack for 6. Costa will fall down to 12. Matt Costa is clearly hoping that Obnixilis is not in Seth Manfield's hand. Just a plains and a passing of the turn, so back to Costa we go. No Emiria Shepherd either. Not just yet. Costa tapping a bunch of mana. More discard. Manfield going to play his Stasis Snare to get the Infiltrator off the battlefield. What's Seth lose? All right. Banabal again. Pass the turn back will Costa over to Seth.
Now we're in 2-turn territory, though. Costa's empty board.
Yep. I believe he's got to find red mana, like right now. Seth did draw a removal spell. Excuse me, Seth drew a spell. That's that Vampire again. Over to Costa. He'll draw. He's been without red mana the entire time, and that's going to do it. Seth Manfield's going to win this match here over Matthew Costa, 2-1. The black-white deck will take care of the blue-red deck, but for Manfield, the world champion, the #1 player in the world, he's 7-0.
And that damn swamp for Costa.
Yep.
Not the way that he wants to do it. He's got a complete disregard in his deck and a Radiant Flames that he's trying to be able to converge for 3. He has a Sunken Hollow, Evolving Wilds, the 1 swamp. Pretty stable mana there, but unfortunately drew the swamp, had no mountains. Missed land drops, had expensive spells in his hand, and we were worried about what Manfield's upper part of the curve would do to Costa in the matchup, but there was just a 4-drop and a 5-drop while Costa fumbled around.
Yeah, it wasn't